Hello, everyone. My name is Yapmi, and I'm the host for tonight's program. I hope everyone is fine and safe. Avoid going out or roaming around. Always remember to wash your hands and avoid touching your face. Most importantly, stay at home. These broadcasts are brought to you by our fellow JPO members and some of the world's greatest musicians that wishes to share their knowledge and help aspiring musicians through their musical journey. We are also providing opportunities for everyone with different interests to learn not performance but transferable life skills. We are doing this series of program because JPO think this will be able to help in uplifting the spirit of everyone in this long period of lockdown. So if you have any questions to ask, please don't be shy and type them in the Q&A below. JPO are indeed very honored to be able to invite Phil Snedecor as our special guest for tonight, with his topic being Building Your Career in Music. Former Baltimore Symphony Orchestra member Phil Snedecor has been a driving presence in the Baltimore, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. area for over 25 years. He is the co-founder and artistic director of the Washington Symphonic Brass and has written a series of brass etudes, books that are required repertoire at many colleges and conservatories. His arrangements and compositions have been performed throughout the United States, Europe, Asia, and Australia. Hill attended the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York, and has held one-year positions with the National Symphony, the Kennedy Center Opera House Orchestra, and the Baltimore Opera. He is principal trumpet of the Harrisburg Symphony Orchestra and former co-principal trumpet in the Concert Artists of Baltimore. Mr. Snedecor has performed and toured throughout the United States, Europe, and Asia. Recently, Mr. Snedecor has been in demand as a guest principal with the Pittsburgh Ballet Orchestra and the Louisville Orchestra, and as guest trumpeter for the Albany Symphony, Boston Pops, and Boston Symphony. He has recorded under the RCA, CBS, Gothic, Pause, and Summit labels. Phil's solo CDs, The Lyrical Trumpet 1 and 2, are also available on the Summit label. Phil is currently Associate Professor of Trumpet at the Hart School of the University of Hartford. So everyone, let us welcome Dr. Phil, Professor Phil.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Hey,
Great to
thank
be
you.
here.
It's a pleasure to have you with us today. Okay, so let us start with the interview. Could you tell us something about the videos that we have watched just now?
Yes, so the very first video was of myself at a rehearsal playing a bit of the Star Spangled Banner, our national anthem. And what I'm going to talk to you guys today about is making music that maybe you've heard before, but make it uniquely yours, and how you take a piece that everybody knows and make it a part of your persona or your career. So, for instance, that particular clip was the Star Spangled Banner. Everybody knows it. However, I did a thing at the National Building Museum years ago where this eagle flew over as I played it and back, and it was very dramatic. And again, everybody's heard the national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner, but I played it in the way that maybe not everybody plays it. Like, I made it my way. I did it the way I wanted to do it. And you can do that with all music. So that was, again, it was a rehearsal, but it was for a bigger event that night. I don't have a video of the event that night, but it was that eagle, his name was Challenger. And he goes to events and he does things like that, very dramatic flyovers. So that was an American bald eagle. And I was playing at the National Building Museum in Washington, D.C. The next thing was my wife, Beverly, and I playing in a forest not too far from where I am now in Connecticut. It was last Easter, and on Easter I usually play the trumpet in a cathedral. But during COVID, I couldn't, right? Nobody could go out, nobody could
Yes.
be anywhere. So I was going crazy and I said, please, let's go do something. And so we walked out in the middle of the forest and we played some Bach. That was originally for two oboes and voice and continuo. And we played it again our way. We played it just with flute and trumpet and made it special just for us. Right? I made a little arrangement of it. It wasn't any big deal, but it reached far on YouTube because people we spoke to people that way. People wanted to get out and do something, and Bach is always great. The next thing I believe was a piece called Music of New England, which was a piece that I wrote. I had spent 25 years in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area, but when I moved to New England, I thought it was a very special place, and I wrote a piece about it. So that was Elizabeth Tomczyk and I playing at the Hart Music Studio. And we did a project called The Music of New England Then and Now. And as far as part of the now is concerned, I wrote a piece for it. So, okay, so anyway, that was a Music of New England. Those scenes were of New England, kind of in the wintertime where I live. And so it was called A Long New England Winter. And then the last piece was Puccini's Nessun Dorma from Turandot, from the opera Turandot. That was with
Yes.
Charles Casey playing the trombone, and that was my arrangement. You saw different shots of the Washington Symphonic Brass, both in rehearsal and at various performances, playing the Nessun Dorma. And again, it's originally for an opera orchestra, a huge opera orchestra, and a huge chorus and a soloist. Not anything like the brass ensemble I made it for, but I took that tune and I made it uniquely ours. So for all these pieces, what I want to talk about today is how to take music you love and make it for you.
Wow. So while rearranging the pieces and making it uniquely ours, w- while you were doing that, have you struggled with, like, what do you most struggle with?
Yeah, so the main thing is I have to pick tunes that speak to me. What makes me feel something as an artist and a musician, as a person, right? Because music is ultimately the communication of emotion. It's not
Yes, yes,
about
yes.
just playing the notes. You can play the notes all day long and nobody cares, right? But if
Yeah, yes,
you think about the people that really move you, the Heifetz and the Isaac Sterns and the Leonard Bernsteins and the Seiji Ozawa and the people like that. I'll never forget being under Seiji Ozawa at Tanglewood and playing Brahms' First Symphony and the very first opening notes of the Brahms and how he conveyed the emotion of that piece through his movements. And so we as musicians have to always remember that that's the goal. You can't just play the notes because everybody can play the notes.
yes, yes.
Pretty much. I mean, everybody that practices, most people can play the notes. The special musicians are the ones that can convey the emotion. So, to answer your questions, I struggle with finding tunes that speak to me, and when I find them, I make them my own.
Wow.
And I make them my own by, that's a picture of me playing a conch shell. That's a seashell, and I buzz my lips into it. That's at the National Cathedral, and we played a piece just with conch shells, but we played a piece that was a Christmas carol because I had different pitches, you know, of conch shells, and so we were able to play that and combine it with brass. Again, I'm making that tune uniquely ours because nobody else does it like that.
Oh, so about the conch shell with the pitch, how do you change the pitch, or was that different conch shells?
Yeah, so each shell has its own unique pitch, and so you have to find the right shells. They have different sizes. Hold on.
Oh,
So this shell is going to be a different pitch than this shell. But you blow you buzz your lips into the end. You see, and it has
yes,
a
yes,
different
yes.
pitch. So you can make music on anything, but you're still conveying emotion.
But then it's a natural shell, right?
It's a natural shell, yes.
Whoa, then with the different structure, then is the tone and the sound completely different?
Yes, yes. If you allow me, I'll play a video of us
Yes.
doing it.
Sure, sure, sure. No problem.
Yeah, yeah. So let me find it real quick, and I will
Okay.
I will play it for you, because it's on my YouTube channel. We had a arrangement of "God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen" in the cathedral, and
Wow.
it was really special. Hold on. Here we go. Can you see?
Yes, yes.
And we change pitches here. So that's kind of what we do with that.
Wow.
Oops. So, and we did the rest of the tune with brass, and then we went back to the shells at the end. So we kind of set up a tonal surround sound, sort of, and with the pitches, and you can change the pitch by a half step by sticking your hand in a little farther and then out.
Oh,
So it's usually just
wow.
got one or two pitches, but you use different shells for the different pitch levels. So you can't really play a whole song on it, but you can weave music around it, and it created a really special effect.
Wow. Is it possible to like, because with the lip technique, you can change the pitch of the trumpet, right? So is it possible with the shell?
It's more difficult because the shell obviously is not built to have the different nodes on it, but you can get maybe a couple of pitches, but it's not as efficient as a piece of tubing that's made for that.
Yes, yes, yes.
So it's more
So
difficult, but you can still do it.
wow, wow, wow. So would you like to, can you demonstrate like some, can you demo can you give us a
Sure.
listen?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you can hear it very well, but so I'm
Oh
buzzing my lips into
wow.
this.
Yes, 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 I hear
So
it. Wow.
so what it's just like we buzz into the regular, and then there's a deeper sound here.
Wow.
So it's a completely different sound on this, right?
Yes, 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 yes. Wow. But with the video just now, I did not expect it to like sound so smooth. It sounded really smooth just now. And then like, may I know how loud can this go?
I'm sorry.
How loud can it go?
Oh, it can go pretty loud. Um, In fact, it was used for signaling. If you were on an island and you wanted to signal somebody across the island, that's what this was used for. It wasn't at first used for music, but you buzz your lips in there the same way you buzz into a trumpet.
Then how loud is it compared to a trumpet?
Oh, a trumpet can play much louder, I think, because it's set up for that. This is really set up for an animal to live. This is an animal's home. So it's not really meant to play music, but we can take anything and play music. Again, it's not about the notes. It's about how do we convey our song or our emotion through
Yes,
whatever
yes,
instrument we're playing.
yes, yes. Wow. It sounds amazing.
Thank you. I'll bet none of your guests have played shells before.
Yes, not not on the played shells before. Wow. Okay, so why did you want to play music for a living?
I just I was always drawn to it. I always loved listening to music, and I always was interested in that. And I didn't really see myself doing anything else. I wanted to do it. I always am asked why, how were you successful? And my answer is always that I wanted it really bad. It wasn't that I was the most talented or that I did anything particularly right. I just really wanted to do it. And that carried me through the bad times.
Wow, wow. So at what age did you start playing music?
I started when I was 10 years old in fifth grade, which is a little late for string players. I know string players start when they're in third grade or second grade or, when they're 5 years old. I didn't start till I was 10 years old. There's me and the eagle that flew over. His name is Challenger, and he's the one that flew over my head when I played the Star Spangled Banner. Anyway, I started when I was 10 years old, and I got inspired by a band that I saw at a talent show, and I really loved the way the trumpet sounded, so I decided to play it.
Wow, okay. Wow. So at that time, was it immediately like that's when you decided that, wow, I wanted to pursue music, or was it like after quite some time?
No, when you're 10 years old, you don't know what you want to do. You want to be a fireman or something. But I realized early on that I wanted to, early meaning in high school, early high school, I wanted to play music. And I started actually arranging in high school and making different music my own. This is me and the Boston Symphony with a chorus behind us. And there's Tom Rolfs and Ben Wright and myself. And these moments are really special when you're playing. You're surrounded by musicians that are great, and there's this huge thing, much bigger than you. That's why we all love playing in an orchestra, right? Because
Yes,
because
yes, yes.
it's so awesome, right? And
Yes, and it sounds amazing.
yeah, it sounds amazing, and that's why we do what we do. But what we have to realize is, as individual musicians, we have to make a contribution on our own level. Everybody's got to make their own contribution. You can't just sit there and go, wow, this is really cool to be here. I want to just, play in my box. You have to, especially these days, you have to go out there and make your own voice, I call it. Find your voice on your instrument.
Wow, wow. Okay, so how did you develop the skills needed to make a living on your instrument?
Right. So I think skills that people overlook these days is the ability to sight read. Okay, not too many people are able to play without practicing a lot. Like, if I were to give a young person a tune for the very first time, they probably wouldn't feel comfortable performing it right away. And you need to sight read and perform while you're sight reading. I think that's important, because even if you're not the most comfortable doing that, that's a skill you have to have, because you're going to find yourself in situations. That plus a thing I call radar. And radar is when you're sitting in the middle of an orchestra or a brass quintet or a string quartet or any kind of ensemble, the ability to connect with your fellow musicians in a very direct and immediate way is not something that most people have. And you can get that. You just have to pay attention to it. So I call it radar. It's like a sixth sense. You have to play your own part, but you have to be connected to the other musicians. And if you don't have your radar out, you're not playing music with those people. You're just playing the notes on the page. And so too many people just go, okay, I'm playing my part. Well, forget about these people. But you have to think, I'm part of a great, whether it's a string quartet or a duo or an entire 100-piece orchestra, you're only a part of that, and you have to connect with your other musicians. So obviously there's other things, you have to have good intonation, you have to play all the right notes, you have to have good production. Production is important for brass players to be able to have the notes speak right away. Too many young brass players go pfa, pfa, right? You have to be
Yes.
able to go ba, ba, right away, right when you know. Same with string players. You have to know when the note starts. You can't just kind of slide around and find the note. You have to know where the note is before you play it, right? It's kind of a technique thing. But the two things that are most important, as far as I'm concerned, are radar and the ability to sight read, because there's
Yeah, for the radar part. So is it, in short, is it like a conversation with the listener?
kind of, yes. Well, no. There's a conversation with the listener that you're connected to the audience. That's a different kind of radar. But the radar I'm talking about is having a conversation with your fellow musicians.
Like the communication between the group, right?
Correct. So even when I'm playing, let's say with a pianist, that one tune that I did with Elizabeth on the piano, I have to be connected to her in a very real way in order to play with her. And so it's a listening skill, but it's also there's something deeper than just listening. You have to actually connect your actions with the other person's actions. And everybody can develop this. It's not something that I have and nobody else has. You just have to be aware of it, and you have to develop it. It's like anything else. And if nobody tells you it's there, then you don't know to look for it.
Yes.
So the next time, what I'm going to encourage your participants to do here is, next time you are playing with a person or a number of people, try to listen to anybody else's part except for yours. Your part's going to take care of itself, but try to connect to somebody else's part, not yours.
Yes. Then I have a question. So when it comes to this, like communicating with the other player, so will there be more of a like muscle memory playing and then listening to your friend?
Correct. Yes, absolutely. You kind of go on automatic pilot. So
Yes,
there's
yes,
different parts of you that are taking care of your part, and then your conscious goes to somebody else. And
yes,
that's
yes, yes.
that's really where music is made.
Yeah,
That's the
okay.
magic moment. That's the magic moment where you're like, "Oh, wow, that's why I'm doing this in the first place." Because I'm connected to my other musicians, and the musicians in turn and then are connected to the audience, and the audience sees that connection and they really are drawn to it. The problem with music today is that too many people are just playing the notes, and the audiences hear that and they go, well, that's kind of boring. I think I'll watch Netflix. And they decide to do that instead. Right? But if you see a really compelling performance, whether it's on YouTube or live, you're like, wow, I'm really glad I'm here. I want to watch all of this. And that's what you want as musicians. You want to compel your audience to be able to want to watch more of you.
Yes, a lot of people thought playing alone as a soloist is more difficult than playing in a group.
I think they're both difficult.
Well, okay. Okay, so how was your path different than most classical musicians?
Right. So a lot of classical musicians, they come out of college and then they take a lot of auditions or a few auditions and they get in an orchestra and they spend the rest of their career in an orchestra. Or they go to school for longer and they get their DMA and then they become a professor. I did neither, and I did both. So I got my master's in music, which is not your DMA. So most people that only have a master's don't become professors. But so I got my master's degree, and then for a long time I was not in a full-time orchestra. I was freelancing. I was doing my own thing. I was creating my own groups. I was playing part-time in orchestras, but I wasn't playing full-time in orchestras. And then kind of late in life, when I was in my mid-40s, I won the Baltimore Symphony job and got a regular orchestra job. And when I did, it wasn't as exciting as I thought it would be. I thought it would be like, wow, this is it. But for me, it was like, wow, that's all I have to do is go in and play trumpet in these concerts. And so it wasn't as satisfying for me as for some people. But I spent most of my career before that doing other things, creating concerts, publicizing it myself, being artistic director, choosing the music myself, hiring the players myself. And then when I got in the Baltimore Symphony, all I was a trumpet player. That's all I did, and that's okay for some people. Some people like that. They just want to go in and they want to play second violin, and that's it, right? And that's good. So, and they make a living doing that, and they're happy. For me, I wasn't happy doing that. I needed to do something else. So then after Baltimore, I decided, well, maybe professor is better for me. And most people that are professors have their doctorate, their doctorate in musical arts, their DMA. And so, but I didn't have that. But I still applied and got the job at the Hart School because they give you credit for doing things that are the equivalent of a DMA. So for me, all my years of experience of creating groups and solo career and my orchestra career counted for the equivalent. So I did it so different, right? So I did the freelance thing and the solo thing, and then I did the orchestra thing, and then I did the professor thing. Some people just choose one. I kind of did it all because, that's what how my path was.
Then currently you're a professor and uh, a trumpeter, and then also a freelancer. And oh,
Well,
okay,
currently,
wow.
so I don't play in the Baltimore Symphony anymore. I quit that job, and I
Uh,
go to but I'm in. I live in the Hartford, Connecticut area, but I go and I guest. I play when the Boston Symphony wants an extra trumpet. Sometimes I go play there, and when the Albany Symphony wants a trumpeter, or I still go to Washington D.C. and lead my own group, the Washington Symphonic Brass. So I still kind of freelance. Yes, it's and I want to keep playing because that's part of what I do. I want to keep current so that my students see what I'm doing in real time, and I can teach them better that way.
wow. So it's more of so it's like, how do I say this? So you keep until now you're still uh, I mean before MCO, before COVID, then was it more of like touring and a lot of stuff?
Was it more what?
Tour, touring, going around and performing.
Right. So I travel a lot. Yeah. So I live in Hartford, but Boston is 2 hours away. New York's 2 hours away. I can always get in my car and go somewhere, or I fly somewhere. I went to St. Louis Obispo in California and played the Hummel Concerto as a soloist a few years ago. And so, yeah, it's exciting because I can teach, but I can also go play. And like I said, I think it's important. All the people that are listening here that are thinking about teaching as a career, please don't give up your instrument. Please play very actively so that you can give that experience back to your students. Because even if you've played maybe years ago, like professionally, if you're teaching, it's really good to be able to draw on current experiences.
Wow, wow. Okay. So, what are the most important skills a classical musician can have? Oh,
Right.
sorry. I think I've asked. Oh no, not yet.
Yeah, yeah. So that's okay. It kind of relates back to the other question, but I'll say the most important quality any musician can have is determination. To make if you really want it. So too many people go into music because it's kind of fun, and they don't feel like doing math. Right? They're like, oh yeah, I don't want to do math or physics. I want playing in orchestra is more fun, right? And so it is, but you don't realize how much work it is, and then you don't realize how competitive it is. And so to the people thinking of majoring in music, I would say, in making music a career, I would say be prepared for a lot of work and a lot of determination, because it's not all an uphill. It's not like you go to school and then you magically just get a job because you have the degree. It's a lot of ups and downs. I tell people that getting better in music is like the stock market. It goes up and down and up and down and up and down. Eventually it goes up, but you have a lot of downtime, right? So you have a time where you feel like you're getting worse, and then eventually you get a little better. So it takes a lot of desire to be able to do that. And if you don't have that desire, please major in something else. Please do something else. It's okay. You don't have to. I mean, you can play music for fun, but unless you really want it really bad, so look inside yourself and see if you want it really bad, because that's the people. The people that are successful want it the most.
Yes. And I mean, and then we have to do a lot of practicing just to keep
A lot of
going.
lonely hours in the practice room.
Okay, and then for the final question of the interview, what do you think of JPO and the activities that we are doing now?
I think it's great that you guys are, first of all, doing this during the pandemic and keeping everybody's spirits up by interviewing great musicians. And I think it's hopefully you'll come back together soon and play in person, right? Yeah. So yeah, I think it's awesome. You guys are doing a great job keeping people engaged and interested in what's going on and keeping their spirits high.
Wow, okay. And now we will move on to the Q&A session. So for any viewers or attendees, if you have any questions to ask, please type them in the Q&A below. And Professor Phil will start answering your questions. So let us wait for a while and see. Okay, so we have our first question in. Hi, you have tried the seashells. Have you tried other things besides the normal wind and brass instruments?
That's a great question. So I've dabbled a little bit in natural trumpet, but for us, I've always tried to do cross medium performances. So let's say you have a dancer to collaborate with, or an artist, or something like that. When we were in Baltimore, we did a thing with the students where they went in and played music of the period for different paintings that were painted then, and artworks.
Wow.
I'm not sure if that really answers your question, but always trying to find different ways to present your music in context is really important. But as far as other actual instruments, no, I encourage you to do that, especially if a lot of people play several different instruments. But the seashell's probably the strangest I've gotten. Mostly, I play different trumpets. I have a lot of different trumpets. I have piccolo trumpet, I have flugelhorn, I have C trumpet, I have F trumpet. Different types of trumpets, but all trumpets.
What about like trombones, tubas?
I don't play those, but I write. I write for tuba sometimes. I have etudes that I've written for tuba, and I just wrote a euphonium book, which is around here somewhere. But I wrote a euphonium book, and I think it's important to, if you're writing, to not just write for your instrument, to write for other. And when you're writing for other instruments, you have to imagine what it's like to play that instrument. That's the hard part. So if you're an arranger or a composer, and even if you're just writing for your instrument and piano, let's say you're a violinist. Are you a violinist?
I'm a cellist.
Cellist. Okay, so let's say you want to write a piece for cello and piano. You know how to write the cello part, right? That's easy because you play cello. If you're not a pianist, you have to imagine what it's like to play the piano part that you wrote. So I play all the piano parts I write. I play very slowly and very poorly the piano parts to make sure I can reach everything and make sure it's semi-comfortable. And I know if I can kind of get to it, then my pianist will be able to get to it.
Oh.
But you have to use your imagination. And let's say you're not, if I'm a euphonium player, I have to imagine what's it like to actually play the euphonium and have all that huge range, right? So
have you met some of your arrangements and then the players come play the part?
have I had some of my arrangements where they cannot play the parts?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, but mostly early on. Usually, my arrangements are usually playable because, again, and sometimes if, let's say, harp, if I'm writing harp parts, I always bring the harp parts to a friend of mine, Susan Robinson, who's the Kennedy Center Opera House Orchestra harpist, and she fixes them. She goes, no, don't do this, do this. So you ask somebody that really knows, and then you can fix them and go to your job, and then the harp player will be like, oh, these are good parts.
Okay, okay. Okay, so now we'll move on to the next question. When you said find your own voice or make your own music, do you ever worry about people accepting it, like your voice?
No, that's a great question because too many people don't try things because they feel like people aren't going to like it, and that's the biggest barrier for artists is feeling like somebody might not like it. And you know another word for that is failure. You can't be afraid of failure. Go ahead and do it, and if it fails, fine, but then you learn from that. The only way to be successful is to fail. Hardly anybody goes out and is successful right away. So you have to go out and let's say you're finding your own voice and you let's say I picked up a conch shell and people hated it. People were like, "What is that idiot with a conch shell doing?" And they threw tomatoes at me, right? I would figure out something from that, right? I would learn from that. So it takes some courage to get out there and do something crazy like that, or to just do anything that's different. But you have to get out there and be willing to fail. That's part of success. Be willing to fail.
Oh, but as you started, did it just went on like that, or you just at first you were also quite like how do I say like not confident, like you worry about other people's opinions.
So was I always like this? I think for me, I didn't worry about it too much. I didn't think about it as much as some other people. So maybe I seemed more confident, but I was really just oblivious and kind of stupid about it, which is kind of a good way to be because I just went out and did my thing and didn't worry about. But I know a lot of people have problems with feeling like, "Oh no, if they don't like it, they're not liking me." And no, they're don't take it personally. That's the other thing. Try not to take your failures personally. It's not personal. It's not that they don't like you as a person. They might not like what you're doing, but that's okay. Learn from that and move on rather than worrying about being rejected personally.
Oh wow. Okay, okay. Oh, what a great advice. Okay, and then now the next question. Would you like to share with us what have you done during the pandemic that you have not done before?
Yeah, so during the pandemic, well, I don't think I've ever played Bach in the forest with my wife before, so that's something new. Uh, and then I did a lot of videos and arranging for, Washington Symphonic Brass, my big group. We did some arrangements just virtually. And I did a lot of teaching online, just kind of like everybody else. I mean, what was the hardest? I'd never spent that long not playing with people in person. Like I didn't know what that was like. Really, ever since I started the trumpet, right? In 5th grade, I'd always played with people. Every week, if not every day, I was always playing with another human being next to me. And that all stopped. So what I did mainly in COVID was I figured out how to make music with myself that was important and interesting. I had to be my own muse, so to speak. I had to figure out how to communicate emotionally to nobody, right? And but so it took a lot of imagination from. So I would go out on my deck that has trees, and I would play for nobody. And then one day I realized that people, my neighbors, were hearing me, and that I was actually communicating with some people. But for before that, it was really difficult because I was trying to do something I'd never done before, which is not play with people. So that's the main thing.
Oh,
And I
and
learned
then
from that, by the way. I learned how to be a better musician because of it.
oh, then was it like was it more like you play solo parts, or was it like you play music in your head and then you also play with the trumpet?
Bach cello suites. A lot of Bach cello suites.
Wow.
There's nothing better than Bach cello suites to, first of all, to challenge a trumpet player because you know how hard they are on cello, and to play them
Yes,
on
yes,
trumpet
yes.
is very challenging, right? So I played a lot of those. I tried to make as much music. They're perfect because they're written by a master composer for one instrument, and you don't need another instrument to make music out of those. So I played a lot of some etudes, some solo pieces, but a lot of Bach cello suites.
You ever think of doing it for the nature?
Yeah, sure. I played for the birds a lot and the bears
What about the trees?
and the trees.
Did it feel like you were connecting with nature?
Yeah, a little bit, and I got reacquainted with myself too. We tend to go from job to job and from rehearsal to rehearsal, thinking about connecting with our colleagues, but we don't really think about connecting with ourselves musically as much, and that's one of the things I was able to do.
Wow. Oh yeah. I wanted to ask. So while you were playing in the forest with your wife, so were there any like how do I say obstructions? I don't know, like maybe some like leaves blowing here and there or something
Yeah, you
inconveniences.
you heard the wind in the recording, right? So there was
Yeah.
definitely some wind. We had problems at first because our music stands were blowing down. It was a challenge, but we finally got it all situated, and then we were able to make music.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Don't you think um you are giving them what they need, the carbon dioxide for the trees?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So now, on to the next question. Thank you for sharing, Professor. Please advise on what is the optimum duration for practicing the trumpet for someone who are pursuing in it tertiary level.
Yeah. So a common problem with brass players is sometimes they practice too much and they get so tired they start playing incorrectly. And so practice only as much as you can without getting super tired. So I like to tell people a lot of small 15 or 20-minute sessions is better than one big 2-hour session. So even if, let's say, you want to practice 2 hours a day, try to play 20 minutes, take a half hour off, play 20 minutes, take a half hour off, because your mind and your body gets tired, and it's better to play a lot of little sessions than one big session.
Oh, so what about how should I say this? For people who, because trumpet is quite loud, and then what if they don't have mute, and then they only have a limited time to practice. So what's your advice for them?
Right. So you're saying because if they're in a situation where they have like 1 hour in a room, they can play
Yeah, yeah,
full out, and that's it. Yeah. So take that hour and split it up. 20 minutes on play, and then 20 minutes listening and fingering through, and then 20 more minutes playing. So you're not bashing it all the time. For violinists, for cellists, and string players, it's different.
yes,
You
yes.
guys can
Okay,
play for you guys can play for 3 hours just fine.
yeah. Okay. Hi, Professor Phil. What would you say is the most challenging in your journey to become a professional trumpeter?
I think the hardest thing was figuring out what I wanted to do when I grew up. Even at even at 45 or 50, I think, well, I really like to do this, but I should do this, and I just finding what I really wanted to do was the hardest part.
Then until
And
now, have you find what you want to do? Have you
yeah,
found
so
what you want to do?
I like to do too many things. So yeah, for me now I'm in the perfect position because I like to teach and I like to play and I like to write and I like to you know be in nature. So I'm living kind of in a nature setting and I'm playing and I'm teaching and I'm doing everything that I kind of want to do. But it took me a long time to get here.
Wow. So what about your next project? Do you have any plans?
Right. Well, I just wrote a euphonium book. My next project, I haven't thought of my next project yet, but I'm sure it will. My next project is to build a woodshed because I need a woodshed. But other than because I like to build things, I built a fireplace housing for my wood stove last year in COVID. But
Wow.
now I'm building a woodshed. So I'm always building something, whether I'm writing a book, or building something. During COVID, I also published Stanley Friedman's accompaniment to Charlier Etudes, which were brilliant. So I have a little publishing company. So I'm always doing something maybe that's adding to the repertoire. So for me, the next project will be something along those lines. Add something to the repertoire for trumpet.
Wow. So about your shed, will it be your next practice room?
I wish. No, it's gonna be actually to hold wood.
Okay.
But maybe my wife will kick me out there, and I'll have to practice out there. Who knows?
Wow. Oh, to keep wood. So,
The,
oh,
to
wait.
keep wood. So I burn wood to heat my house in a wood stove.
Ah,
So I have to have some place to store the wood. So I'm building a shed to keep the snow off of the wood.
okay, okay, okay. Then, then, oh, I don't, it's just an idea. Is it possible to actually make a wooden trumpet and make it sound good?
They've made wooden trumpets before. I don't know how good it sounds. A long time ago, they've always made it out of some sort of metal, but I think they've dabbled in wooden trumpets. We have wooden mutes as well, but it's a different sound.
Is it like very different, or it's just, or more mellow?
It's much more mellow. The vibrations work differently.
Oh, have you tried, um, one of those, uh, I don't think you call it trumpet, like one of those water hose kind of instrument?
A hose, well, that's usually for demonstrating how the trumpet works. But yes, I've put my mouthpiece in a hose and put a funnel at the other end and played it. Yeah, it works very similar to a trumpet, but it sounds very different, right?
Oh. Okay, okay. Okay, so we are coming to the end of this interview. On behalf of JPO, we'd like to thank you very much for dedicating your time, Professor Phil, and energy into this interview despite the pandemic that is happening right now. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. And we will also like to thank everyone who has attended and supported this program. You guys have been great. I hope you guys got the answers you wanted. And for those who are still waiting for the answers, please stay as Dr. Phil will answer your questions through the Q&A below later. Please check for the link at our JPO Facebook page and stay tuned. For anyone interested to share any of our program with your family and friends, it will be on our Facebook page, Jesselton Philharmonic Orchestra. And now I will lead the prayer to end tonight's program. So please pray in whatever faith you believe in for the COVID-19. Dear Lord, we lift to you our concern for people who are more likely than others to become severely ill for COVID-19, the elderly and people with chronic health conditions. Protect them from harm and be their comfort in this time of uncertainty. And for many, preventive isolation from loved ones. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okay, and that would be all from us today. Thank you, everyone, and thank you very much, Professor Phil.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, goodbye.